See, as I got more into personal development, I started reading books and all this other resources. One of these resources that I read is this book called The War of Art, or The War on Art, or something like that. It was basically a play on Sun Tzu's The Art of War. But this book basically describes what an artist generally goes through. Whenever you want to make any kind of craft, it doesn't have to be YouTube videos like what I'm doing in this case. You're gonna have this thing called resistance, which again, it creeps up in so many different forms. But the general gist or the idea behind what resistance is that it's anything that stops you from making your art. So if in this case, like if I decide to make a movie review and then for whatever reason I don't find the review funny enough, I don't find the storyline good enough, or the narrative that I'm trying to create remotely cohesive, guess what? I'm creating resistance for my art. I'm not allowing whatever the process is to go through with the way it's supposed to go through. And what does that do? It basically stops you from making art. So I think this is stumbling across a deeper philosophy, which is that if you resist too much, you get paralyzed, which is crazy, right? Because most of the art that you're gonna make isn't gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be good. Even if you tried it for a million years, your first draft, your second draft, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you haven't been honing a craft for years and years, you're definitely gonna miss things that like again, in your head it's gonna make sense, but when you actually put it to practice, your technique isn't the level that your vision's at. So this is just a natural part of progression. See, the fact that people think you can get to perfection without being flawed, that's the real problem with our society, because if you go to YouTube, all you're gonna see is a gazillion people being the best version of themselves. And not only that, they've been doing it for so long that it seems very crisp and clean. So when you watch it, you're like, well, anyone can do this. And that's the same for all art forms. Because the second you start trying to do what, all these people that are getting success in a certain skill set are doing, then you're gonna realize, wait a minute, this is a fucking journey. There's no such thing as getting it fully correct the first time off. The whole idea of trying to land something perfect or trying to improve it can leave you crippled from actually executing on your work. So at what point is it excuse making it? At what point is it like legitimate reasons for you to not do a certain thing? That's really the seesaw balance that you got to do as an artist. Any kind of progress that you're making towards your art can be hindered by this whole thing of resistance, because maybe your reasons are different. Maybe you're not trying to make the ultimate review video, you're not looking to make it funny, this and that, but you'll have different things. Let's say you write books or something. If you're writing books, you're gonna have so many different things hitting you, like, does this plot line make sense? Does this character story make sense? Does this do that, this? All these things are legitimate concerns, because if you're not like Ernest Hemingway, you're not J.K. Rowling, then most likely you haven't had enough experience to actually know the areas that might even need improvement in the first place. So if you get to a point where it's almost perfect, vast majority of the world isn't really gonna notice the nitty-gritty details. Like they might not even appreciate what your art form is, because they're not even a fan of it. But you can still get to a point of mastery, which is pretty successful. So if you know that, why is it so hard to make art? Why is there always so much resistance? Why is it that the excuses in our personal lives are more significant than everything else? Like, something will always go wrong. Why is that? It's such a weird thing, because every human being experiences it. So this idea of resistance isn't necessarily just for art forms. It's literally to do with just human psychology. Every human being has this idea of, okay, I need to finish this. And if you want to make it finish like perfectly, then you're gonna cripple yourself by being over meticulous. And how do you even solve for something like that? Because you need to be over meticulous to create something that's good. And yet, being over meticulous might lead you to not even make content in the first place, because you might be crippled by what's good and what's not good. So let's look at this case right here. I tried to make a review video for Netflix's worst movie and horror movie. And turns out this movie is so dumb and the plot line is so grotesque that I just couldn't come up with anything that would keep the user's attention captivated, because I myself kept losing attention. But really, was just that an excuse? Maybe I could have watched a bunch of movies and then reviewed the funniest one. So there's a lot of things when you think at it. You're like, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And yet, guess what? For days and days, I'm sitting there thinking of the different ways I can do it while I'm not doing anything in the first place. So that's like the crux of all procrastination, if you think about it. And it isn't necessarily just about procrastination. This has more to do with the fact that maybe there's an identity crisis. You don't necessarily believe you can make something world class, so you don't really pursue it to that degree. Or maybe you try and it doesn't turn out to be that good, so you just go like, fuck it, I give up, I don't want to pursue something. So once you make it tangible and realized, then suddenly that fantasy of like, oh, once I upload that major video, then I'd go viral. So the whole identity that you create comes from the fact that you don't really have a firm grasp of the fact that maybe the journey is going to take longer than you want it to. So then how do you get past resistance? How do you do anything at all? Well, it's two parts. You basically have to put yourself out there, and you also have to know that whatever you're putting out there isn't your best work. So you're going to get kicked in the nuts a bunch of times by society, by life, by whatever your marketplace is that you're putting yourself out there in. And those kicks, they'll teach you slowly but surely the areas that you need to improve on. Alright, so what's the conclusion here? What can you take away from this book? Well, the most important thing is the fact that this is almost like a timeless principle. Whatever you apply yourself to, you're going to always have excuses. You're always going to have reasons for not doing what you want to do. I forget this quote I read somewhere. The perfect time to start is now. It doesn't have to be perfect, blah, 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 blah. Or something like that. The perfect is in the imperfect. I don't know. I'm going to butcher this quote, so I'll just put it right here. So what does this quote mean? Well, this person understands the same philosophy that this book is talking about, which is, at the end of the day, you gotta do whatever the fuck you can do, because whatever you put out there, that's it. You have a shot constantly until you don't. So to get to perfection, like Aristotle said, is not an act, but it's a habit. So closer and closer as you get. Every video, I put this up until my shoulder dies, and I don't understand why I don't just get one of those cool tripods that was a budget issue. See, resistance to my art. Anyway, I hope you learned something in this video. I'm gonna grab some dinner now. Peace.